Hello, this is a little video on Salvadore Dali, as today, May 11th, is his birthday. He would be 120 years old today. So here's just a little glimpse of him and his art from Google Images. And we're going to look at the astrology of this man. There's so much here. I'm not even going to get into his life at all. I just want to show you the astrology, but we definitely see somebody unusual, somebody talented, somebody not afraid to be in the limelight, somebody kind of look at me. Okay, somebody surreal. Let's just unpack this, but I just wanted to show a few of these here. All right, let's do another screen share. Let's go look at the chart of Salvadore Dali. And here it is. Let me move this out of the way. Okay, so what we have here, actually, you know what I want to show you? Well, I'll come back to it in a second. My notes of this, I'll show you in a second. But for those of you that are Dali lovers and don't know astrology, I'll try to paraphrase as much as I can. But what we're looking at here is the natal chart of Salvadore Dali. This is his birthday and time in Figueres, Spain, May 11th, 1904, 8:45 a.m. So when we look at this chart, we should think that this is a flattened view of the heavens. So if you are where you are looking out at this line going through the center here, cutting this circle into an upper and a lower piece, this is the horizon line. So imagine you're looking at a sunset or something. And then over here on this left side would be the eastern horizon. So if we were looking east, we would see anything rising up, like think of the sunrise. It would be coming up over the horizon. We'd know it would be sunrise. And then anything at the very top would be noon. Anything at the right-hand side is sunset when it goes beneath the horizon. Anything at the very bottom is midnight, and then we extrapolate in between. So when we look at this chart, we're going to just look at where the sun is, and we can see that it's not quite to noon, right? It's not sunrise, but it's not noon either. So we look here, and it's 8:45, and we are fairly north. We're in Spain, so I'm not going to go into how it's not exact, like it's you at 9 in the morning, but what time the sun was rising at that part of Spain. Nonetheless, we see his sun here, and we see the circle with the dot in it, and this puts him in May 11th as a sun in Taurus. We see this little circle with the little look like horns. This is a Taurus. This is a Taurus sign, and we notice there's several other planets with with the sun in Taurus. We have right next to it almost is Mercury at 23 degrees. See, this tells us the amount of degrees in that sign. And it goes up to 29, 59, and then it goes in, instead of 30, it will go into the next sign. Nonetheless, he's born at 20 degrees Taurus. He has Mercury right here, this little cross with the hat on its head there, 23 Taurus. And then this here, the circle with the little arrow is Mars, so we have 25 Mars at 25 Taurus, and then Venus back over here at 4 degrees Taurus. This is a stellium. This is a grouping. Anything 4 or more technically together is called a stellium, and that makes there's only, well, I kind of look at 7 inner planets. There's sun, moon, and then the 5 planets. And then out from there, let me just name them. There's Mercury, there's Venus, Mars, and the Earth isn't there, but we don't count it because that's our perspective. And then there's Jupiter and there's Saturn. And those we could see with the naked eye. Maybe not now with chemtrails, but in ancient or earlier times, those were able to be seen. Beyond Saturn are the 3 other planets. One has been demoted to a dwarf planet, but we have Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So I like to look at more of the inner planets to start with, because the outer planets are generational, but I will come back to that because he has something very significant with Neptune and his art, but we'll get there. So, well, okay, so we have this little entourage here in Taurus, and Taurus is earthy, it's sensual, not, of all the senses, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the mouth, the perceptics, tastes. You like, fine hedonistic things, grounded things. This is very interesting that he has this heavy Taurus because his nature is so eccentric, which it might be a very good thing that it grounds that energy. But we'll get there. There's so much. So he has a grouping of planets in Taurus. And of that, certain planets like to be in certain signs. We call it their ruler, or where they're more at home. So Venus is said to be the feminine ruler of Taurus. So we have the planet Venus at home. So this makes this planet stronger. And Venus is his love of art. Venus rules art and finer things, and I don't want to say hedonism, but kind of things that you like, your likes, your interests, money, pleasures. There you go, money and pleasures. So it's in its home place, so that strengthens it. So that brings that sensual, all of those things in the senses, which he had such an acute, different perspective of, into the foreground. Now we see that these degrees here, 20 degrees, 23, 25, are all very close. This is all kind of fused together. And Mercury is oftentimes, it's never far away from the sun. It's only, I think it's like, oh gosh, it's barely 30 degrees away from the sun, I believe. So it doesn't get far, but what happens is it's like conjunct, which is right next to, and then not conjunct. So in his case, it's conjunct. So that is like his communication with himself, or how he communicates, is, very sensual, very earthy, but it's very much there. In his brain, we have that communicative, explorative, that mind fused in with the brain. So it maybe activated more of that potential to see things in a different way. And then Mars, sitting right close to this whole thing, gave him the drive and energy to do this, to bring this forth. Okay, so that's the first thing that kind of grabbed my attention when I looked at his chart. And the second thing that I noticed was up here at the very top. This is called the midheaven, or where we shine, where people see us in the world. And we have the moon up there. So a moon is in Aries, at this Aries midheaven, using a Placidus chart. But anyway, we have the moon up on the top. And that's definitely the look at me. Anybody with the moon up there in the 9th or 10th house, sometimes it's stronger one way or the other. If it's in the 9th house, which it is here, because we count this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We count them counterclockwise right now. But anyway, this is more of the mystical side, the esoteric side. The other side over here is more the corporate career push, make money kind of side. And this is very interesting. He was definitely marketable, and he met many good people to help him along the way. But it is on the right hand side, the let's explore new grounds, let's uncover something that's never been seen or done, the shiny object syndrome. Oh, look over there, the grass is greener, let's explore that, let's unpack that. So that, and then not being afraid to have himself in pictures. So he kind of even used himself in his his mustache, and there's pictures of mustache in the lemnisc, in that infinity symbol and things like that, which came through as the mystical side. But you can definitely see that the moon is on this side, which is on this right hand side of this top line, which is that more mystical side of being up near the top where everybody sees you. Okay, so anything, we got the moon up there, it's like, look at me, I want everybody to look at me in some different ways. Okay, those are a couple really big things right there. Okay, so then the first thing I do, let me give you another share and let me show you my notes. Oh darn, why isn't it in here? I guess I'm not. Okay, so we're not gonna go there. Some reason it didn't load up. Anyway, we'll go back to the chart. So it would be a bunch of gobbledygook, but I'll go over it anyway. So I wrote down all of the elements, fire, earth, air, water, and tallied up his planets, and he has a lot in earth. You know, he's got most of his planets there in earthy Taurus, although we do not have any Virgo or Capricorn, which is interesting. It's just all, you know, 4 planets there in dominating Earth. But then he also has a fairly good amount of fire planets. He's got Jupiter and the moon in Aries. So we have the moon, you can see the moon, and then Jupiter, who looks like the number 4, in the sign of Aries, which is, what we have one more. We have Uranus over here in Sagittarius, which is a fire sign. So this is bringing, Uranus is bringing there's more of this look beyond. Let's go look over there. And it's in reverse or in retrograde motion. So Uranus is the planet of unusual eccentricity, doing things different, and it is in reverse. So it's going to even make it more quirky than it is, and to make just keep stacking things up. Well, we can see how astrologically driven things are once you start understanding it. It's at 29 degrees, 24 minutes. It's almost at the end of that sign, but it's going retrograde, so it's moving in reverse. Planets don't actually back up in space, but from our perspective, as we orbit, things look like they're moving backwards to us for a certain amount of times. And the outer planets will appear that way because they're so far out in our motion. They'll be retrograde for 4 to 5.5 months. Okay, so this just kind of accentuates this the same thing as the moon here in this 9th house. This is the natural house of Sagittarius, and here we have the eccentric planet in Sagittarius. So it has, to me, it's like trining over to this area, but it's accentuating it, and it's in reverse, so it's going to be even more unusual, even more over the top. So that just reinforces this. This is very interesting. Okay, so he's heavy earth. Then again, the next heaviest element was fire. So that is giving him the drive and energy to do this, you know, to be an artist, to travel around, to meet people, to bring his stuff out. All up at the midheaven, you know, the energy and drive to do that. And then he's got some air. He's got planets in air. He's got Pluto, which is one of the outer planets in Gemini, and Saturn in Aquarius. Okay, so let's talk about that one. So anyway, these are both air planets and air signs. You know, and he's fairly balanced. And then he's got his ascendant in Neptune in water, his ascendant in Cancer and Neptune in Cancer. So he's balanced in all the elements. He's not lacking in an element. He's got planets in all elements, but heavy in the earth. But what's interesting here about Saturn, the taskmaker, Saturn is like toe the line, do what's right, don't go wrong. It's stern, it's responsible. And each of the planets in traditional astrology rules 2 signs. So Saturn rules Capricorn, which is its feminine expression, which is more conservative, authoritarian, pay attention to what the government says, toe the line. And the other ruler, Saturn, also rules Aquarius, which is its masculine expression. And this is the rebel. This is the look at me being different. This is the egalitarian. This is the hive mind, the group. I'm doing this for everyone. I'm bringing this to light. Kind of energy. I am unusual. I am eccentric kind of energy. So again, we have another repeat of some of this similar energy. We get doses of it with our charts, depending on how we're born and what we, I believe, incarnate into. I think we predetermine that for our best and highest growth. But anyway, that just kind of brings more of that. It's like if Saturn was in Capricorn, he wouldn't, if it were back further, he wouldn't have been so bucking the system. a lot of the different things were just so unusual. And if you do a little look-see on him, you'll find out there's quite a few. But nonetheless, that brings out that quality, like his, well, I'm not going to go into it, but anyway, he has a lot of those types of things, not being traditional, let's say that way. Okay, and then I look at what's called cardinal fixed mutable signs. Certain signs are they initiatory? Are they holding still, strong, or are they changing on into the next? And he is definitely a fixed. He's got a lot more planets. He's got 5, if we count, well, yeah, all of the inner planets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, are in fixed signs. He's got Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and Saturn, all in fixed signs. So he had like developed a way and stuck with it. He's like, this is my style. This is what I'm doing. This is my unique mark. And so be it. Although he does have some cardinal energy, his ascendant, Moon and Jupiter and Neptune are all in cardinal or initiatory signs. So he was pioneering a new thing and then able to stay with it. See, the whole problem sometimes with too much cardinal energy is it wants to create something and then be on to the next. Create something to be on to the next, never finishes. But he's got a dominance of the fixed energy, which finishes the projects, which sees it to completion. And then there's 2 outer planets that are in mutable energy, which is like, let's dissolve the stuff and move on. So you don't get too fixated on things. So this is kind of interesting, but all of the inner planets there, which I mentioned, are all in the fixed sign. And then we have 2 outer planets, Pluto in an air sign, in a mutable air sign of Gemini, and Uranus in a mutable fire sign of Sagittarius. So those are the mutable energy. And then again, that mutability with Uranus, the eccentric, changeable, sudden movement, kind of planet, involved again, brings us, underlines that eccentricity one more time. Okay, so we see that. So he's pretty balanced, in all of that. A little heavy, though, on the fixed, which is interesting. But as an artist, I think that's good because sometimes, and he was out there as an artist, but he was able to ground that and bring it to forth for a long time, for a long career. All right. What else did I mention? All of his planets, except for Uranus here, but all of the inner planets, and don't mind this one, I haven't talked about that. This is an asteroid, this is Chiron, and then this little thing up here is a node of the moon, and this is a node of the moon. These aren't planets, these are places in space. Talk about that another time. So just ignore that as like a planet, and ignore that because that's just other things. I have my stuff set for that. But if we look at all his planets are pretty much above the horizon. So he was a very public person, very public. And this is funny that Uranus, the sudden planet in retrograde, is below the horizon. So it's like, where does that stuff come from? It just comes. It must incubate in him and comes out of nowhere and just woo, goes up to the moon and just brings that forth. I don't know, a little bit of that. How would I say it? Directed lunacy. So he has up above, which is like public seeing him, his outer self. Not a lot is, well, let's just leave it at that. There, where he's going to is more of an organized mystical place. We'll talk about that in a minute. In life, where he's coming from is pure artistic imagination. The south moon node is in Pisces, which is just that dissolving. He had this talent. I closed down my windows, but if you look at one of his earliest artworks, I can't remember the name of it, but I think he was like 6 or 7, 8 years old when he started landscape. That's right. You look at it and it looks like a Vincent van Gogh. It's just amazing. He's like, 7 or 8 years old painting this stuff. So that was already in him. He already had that talent. And where he was going, on this side, which is interesting, because this is where public sees you. So he brought this stuff, I believe, from a former lifetime and brought it forth and organized it. North Node in Virgo, organizing surrealism of some sorts. How can you organize surrealism? I think he kind of did. He brought it out for people to see and put it in so many different expressive forms. So these are the nodes of his moon, or where we're going. We're coming from the past and we're going toward the future. But nonetheless, most of his planets are above, but this gives him this North Node below the line here in communicative house of natural house of Gemini. Virgo on the cusp would just make him be able to bring that neuroticness down into a usable form, which he then did with his all this Taurus stuff. He was able to bring in that energy. This is fascinating when you actually start looking at the reasons behind this. Okay, and then of that, most of his planets here are on the left side. The left side, but then the left upper side, we call that quadrant 4, which is the left side is the whole left side of the chart is more about me, myself. The whole right side is others, and we see most of his planets are on the me, myself side. So he was not shy about maybe bringing this stuff out. He owned it, right? And it's like, I'm doing this I'm creating this field. I'm creating surrealism. I'm bringing this out. This is very much of a egalitarian, but still self-driven life and artistic. What I want, artistic breakthrough. There we go. All right, so that's that. Now, this is interesting here before we leave that. Mercury, the planet of mind and communication, is in slow Taurus. So that's kind of partly what starts to ground that energy a little bit. As quickly as this stuff is probably lightning coming into his head, he had the ability to slow it down, to look at it, to bring it into art. And then Mercury's also retrograde, which makes it less, I gotta say this, I think it's able to unite the left and the right brain. It makes it maybe less left-brained and more of a right-brained organization. So he might not have been able to do complex math or deep research, but he was able to paint in just awesome form and depth and color and value and just incredible. So that's kind of slowed it down, because Mercury, being right next to his sun, it's like it's fused, is driven. But this was able to help slow and ground this energy and bring it actually into canvas form and not just in his head. So I was able to make something of it, which is good for everyone. He's got a majority, well, actually he's pretty balanced in masculine and feminine planets. And what I mean by that is, planets are assigned a gender mainly because something means outward and inward. Masculine is outward projection. It's driven, it's going out, it's forcing, it's pushing. Feminine is receptive, it's waiting, it's like the bee is masculine and the flower is feminine. And that's ancient euphemisms of understanding planetary energies and all kinds of energies, and a dualistic planet. But he's pretty balanced with those energies. It's not one-sided. All right, let's move on to the big three, I call it. Your sun, moon, and rising. Do they all get along? So his sun, we said, was in earthy Taurus. His moon is in active Aries. The moon is like feminine and feeling, and it's in an outward masculine, aggressive, impatient sign. So here's a little bit of a conflict. First, one little conflict here, and then these two, the sun and the moon, are in signs that just don't really get along. They're neighbors that just are totally different. Aries wants to rush and hurry and bring in and create and get on to the next, and Taurus wants to chew the cud So his sun wants to chew the cud and slow it and be sensual, and the moon wants to get it done. So there's a little bit of some of those voices in our heads, those inner battles, some of those things. There's one. And then we have the rising sign of this gentle Cancer, this feeling, this, able to feel, it's like other people see you as the feeling. But that kind of that does not get along with this outward moon. The moon would much rather be over in Cancer. That's where it lives. It loves to be there, but it's in active Aries. And Aries would rather be over here. So there's a little bit of a discrepancy with his moon, how he feels, and how people see him. They probably saw more of the eccentric side than the mystical side. Let me say that. So then here's the sun making a very nice sextile, almost at exact, over to the rising. So his basic energy liked himself and how he was seen. He liked his mustache, maybe. He liked being in his pictures, in things. He liked that side of himself. He liked, and this is interesting too. Cancer rising, when we look to see what kind of relationships, we look over here and we see Capricorn. So Capricorn, this was interesting with on his seventh house cusp, as it describes the type of partners and relationships. This is like his partnerships with, some of the other people, like with Walt Disney he worked with. So it was more of a business side, and his wife was kind of taking up a lot of the slack, of his business side. And he, got along on that level and liked that, like, Salvadore, paint this today. We got to make the money, pay the rent. Yes, dear. Maybe, I don't know, but it's a little bit more that type of role with people. He's in like a let's get her done partnership, and he wants that. This is what he's looking for, is that. And then interesting that Chiron, it's like the wounded healer, is in this Aquarian sign, the same as Capricorn. I mean, the same as Saturn, and that's just kind of like maybe he had to heal wounds with relationships. But see, because it's in the next sign, it's not in this stern Capricorn. It's back into this rebellious. So it's like, how do we take that rebellious energy and put it into something? So there's that, in the relationship with his wife, her helping him to do that, or whoever. Okay, a few more things. I think I got sun, moon, ascendant. But yeah, I already said that, but his sun and okay, so that's good. Oh yeah, I know what I'm going to talk about. This is where we have some of this creative genius. We have this Neptune in 4 degrees Cancer, which is very feeling. Neptune likes, it's, naturally in a water sign. It loves to be in Pisces. And then here it is in a sister sign. It's in, Cancer. So it's in a water sign. It's able to bring in that other side, bring in that dream. And then with Venus, the higher, the lower octave of this is in Taurus, the sensualness. So these two are exact, other than a few minutes away, 30 minutes away, they're 4 degrees. They're both 4 degrees. And it's called a sextile. And they're in feminine signs. So this is very, very fortunate for having an artistic talent of bringing forth something from the other side. And I think that kind of ties in here with the moon. His moon was able to, that Ariesness, it's like, yeah, I want to paint that. I saw that in my head, or a dream, or a vision, or this together. And then to see things from that strange depth and be able to bring forth is something like this. This is a very mystical aspect too. This is because this is in the Neptune is in the 12th house of Pisces, in its natural place where it wants to be, in a sister sign. So this is very happy, bringing forth mysticism, maybe through art. We see things like that. Like I said, the infinity sign with his mustache, and a lot of other things. He created a whole tarot deck. So he had to know. I guess his wife was mystical as well, but he had to know enough about tarot and what each suit represents and the difference between the major and minor arcana to be able to create a deck about it. which, during those, it was just starting to really be popularized, the Rider-Waite Smith decks and Pamela's art, all that around the time here where he was born. Actually, Pamela's deck was, I think, one of her early ones was created in 1904. Okay, so bringing forth that dream, those visions right here. And then here, this is, a very marketable house. Venus is in that 10th house of, hey, let's make money with my dream, with my paintings, kind of a thing. Anyway, that was very successful. That's an exact aspect. And then the other one that's really real tight is, again, the moon right up there on the midheaven where people see you. So, the moon is up, people to see you. That's very, very intense. Sun square Saturn, another exact one. Sun square Saturn. Well, squares suck. And this is like some seriousness, but they also add structure. They add some seriousness to something. They add form. There's still, even though there's surrealism, there's still form, and there's still depth, and there's still the way you use light and everything with painting. A square aspect. It's like squares, you can't build a house without having the square of some sort. I should say, without knowing square, without having some reference. You can't have a chart here without kind of a square. So anyway, this does add structure, but it's also a little dour, or not afraid to buck the system, not afraid to be iconoclastic and a rebel and in people's face and to be different. So that's there, and that's really tight. 20 to, it's both. Right, he's got some really exact aspects. Mercury is also square here. It's like 3 degrees off a little bit, so that just dovetails right in with not being afraid to be quirky or to be, to distort the structure, because Saturn is all about structure, but it's in Aquarius, which is about let's break down structure, let's change it, and this is how it happened with him. Also, the Sun and Mercury are also sextile, that nice 60 degrees to his ascendant. So how people see him, in the Sun and communicate, that's all getting along. How he communicated, for the most part, I think he was liked. He got into a few things, like when the art about, well, with Hitler and some of that, and his views on that at the time was going against a lot of people. But that's some of the things that made him different. But he had basically the Sun, and he was able to communicate through his personality as well, which is showing that he was able to bring those out. And then, again, both of those are feminine signs, which are drawing people to him, as well as, that outward expression, but people were fascinated by it. All right. See, I mentioned where he was going. We talked about that. I think I've kind of hit on a lot of this. I'm just going to finish up with just a kind of a synopsis. So altogether, he had actually pretty spread out. Look at, all these planets are also pretty spread out. So he's pretty broad. It covered a lot of territory in here. It wasn't like just a tight little bundle. But what's interesting, he doesn't have any oppositions that I could find, unless I overlooked it. Let's see here. Well, we got kind of a close one, but it's no. It's still 29, 30, kind of wide. He doesn't have a lot of. See, what did he have? Did he have a trine? I think just the nodes. Doesn't have a lot of trines. A couple squares, a lot of the sextiles, which are that nice 60 degree, adding flow to him, not a lot of stops. A couple of the squares, sometimes you can't get things done without a little bit of a square, so that's good. But no major trines, no major oppositions, which is interesting. What else? That's the big part of him, and I hope that I've enlightened you to a little bit of what makes this man so intriguing, what makes his art live on, and how that uniqueness just created something and that's still in place. All right, thank you. Hope you enjoyed this and look forward to more. Bye for now.